The golden hue of the morning sun stretched across St. Augustine, casting its warm light over the grand white doors of the church, where an eagerly awaited wedding was about to unfold. The air was thick with excitement, the sounds of murmuring guests and rustling dresses filling the space as family, friends, and neighbors gathered to witness a union meant to last a lifetime. Josie, radiant in her gown, stood at the threshold of a new chapter, her heart carrying the weight of anticipation and love. The moment she had dreamt of had finally arrived. Among the crowd, Ellen, Josie's mother, watched proudly, the deep lines of joy settling onto her face as she took in the sight of her daughter stepping forward. Beside her, relatives whispered words of admiration, their smiles reflecting the happiness surrounding the event. This was more than a wedding. It was the culmination of years of love, a moment of promise. At the center of it all, Jack, Josie's older brother, prepared to guide her down the aisle, stepping into the role their late father could no longer fulfill. His grip on her arm was firm, reassuring, steady, a silent vow that no matter what, he would always stand by her side. Josie was the star of the day, the brightest light in the room, stepping forward with all the certainty of someone ready to embrace her future, to transform this into a perfect beginning. Then, amidst the lively atmosphere, Mason and Johnny arrived, their presence shifting the energy. Mason, carrying something unspoken in his demeanor, moved toward Kiera, his wife, and Josie's closest friend. His words were hushed, his expression marked by quiet hesitation. Kiera listened, absorbing the weight of the message, and as realization dawned, a shadow crossed her features. With careful steps, she approached Josie, her voice steady despite the heaviness in her chest. And then, the words came. Liam wasn't coming. The moment fractured in an instant. The most beautiful day of Josie's life had twisted into something unrecognizable. The laughter, the warmth, the promise, it all shattered before her eyes. Years unraveled from that moment. 8 long years carrying her forward, shaping her into someone changed by heartbreak. Far from the quiet town, in a grand arena filled with thunderous cheers, Liam stood beneath the burning glow of stage lights. His name commanded the room, his voice weaving through melodies that echoed across the packed space. He had become a sensation, a country star whose career had soared beyond expectation, an artist whose talent had captivated thousands. The very dream that had pulled him away from Josie had flourished, becoming something undeniable. Yet, despite the fame, despite the lights and the music, something remained unsettled beneath the surface. After the performance, Sam, his manager, approached with an invitation, a high-profile party, an opportunity to mingle with industry elites. It was expected, routine, another event in the endless cycle of his career. But Liam refused, uninterested in entertaining another crowd, indifferent to the expectations that followed him everywhere. Morning arrived with the remnants of indulgence, the hotel room carrying traces of the night before. Liam stirred, his senses dulled from exhaustion, his thoughts disorganized. The fan who had remained beside him moved carelessly, excitement still buzzing in her movements. Then, with a misplaced step, she crushed the old cell phone Liam had kept despite everything. The moment sent panic surging through him. That phone wasn't just a device. It carried something important, something he had never let go of. Without hesitation, urgency overriding all else, he rushed out of the room, ignoring everything, including shoes, as he sought a way to fix the damage. The streets blurred as he moved, the weight of recognition pressing down as people spotted him, chased after him, eager for interaction. But none of it mattered. His only focus was restoring the device. Inside a small gadget store, relief settled as the manager worked to repair the phone. And when the screen flickered back to life, the reason behind his desperation was clear. It was a voicemail from Josie. The morning's chaos faded into the background, replaced by something heavier. A memory. A voice that had lingered across time, refusing to fade. Later, at Sam's place, the aftermath of his reckless morning greeted him. Frustration met him head-on. His actions, having stirred unnecessary attention, painted the label in a light they didn't appreciate. The lack of restraint, the impulsiveness, had caused more issues than he cared to acknowledge. Then, as words between them exchanged in tense rhythm, the television screen shifted the conversation entirely. A news report, an accident, a name, Mason. The impact was immediate, brutal, suffocating. His best friend, someone from the life he had abandoned, was gone. Grief settled deep, coiling into something unrelenting. The rooftop became his escape, the bottle in his hand a brief reprieve from the storm tearing through his mind. The loss clung to him, refusing to loosen its grip. Even as the alcohol dulled his senses, the reality remained. The funeral was set. He was supposed to be in Denver, standing before another crowd, delivering another performance. But the stage held no meaning now. Without hesitation, he redirected his path, instructing his driver to take him home. 8 years had passed since he had last stepped foot in St. Augustine, since he had last seen the church where his wedding had been meant to take place. He kept to the shadows, avoiding attention, burying himself in the anonymity of silence. Then Josie was seen there. She walked just feet away, holding the hand of a young girl, her daughter. Her gaze flickered with surprise, but she said nothing, offered no acknowledgement beyond the brief shock that crossed her features. Instead, she turned away, stepping inside, leaving him alone in the gravity of their past. Liam remained outside, unwilling to enter, knowing that his father, whom he hadn't seen for so long, the pastor, was leading the sermon. He watched from a distance, the funeral unfolding before him, the loss settling into his bones. Josie, entrusting Billy to Jack, stepped away. And then, without hesitation, she approached and punched Liam in the stomach. No words, no explanations. Just the force of years of pain, betrayal, and unresolved anger. Liam stayed at his father's house, a space unfamiliar yet deeply rooted in memories. Their relationship had long been fractured, communications severed after his mother's passing. Time had not healed that distance. When his father left for work, Liam reached out to Sam. The frustration was immediate. His absence had disrupted everything. But Liam, indifferent to the consequences, dismissed the concerns with the ease of someone who believed money could fix anything. Then, as the conversation shifted, the truth surfaced. He had returned home because Mason, his best friend, had died. The weight of that admission softened Sam's anger. The schedules would be rearranged, the obligations adjusted. For now, Liam was meant to stay, to face the past. With no taxis available in that small town, Liam resorted to his old bike, a worn yet familiar remnant of his past. At the supermarket, he purchased alcohol, his gaze catching the headlines that detailed his reckless sprint through the city the other day. Then, through the glass of a nearby shop, Josie appeared, stepping into a flower shop. Without hesitation, Liam followed. And there, surrounded by the quiet beauty of her world, he found her. The woman whose absence had haunted him for 8 years. The one person he had never truly let go of. The weight of 8 years settled between them as Josie and Liam stood face to face. The quiet tension stretched across the space of her flower shop. The town had long since moved on, leaving Liam behind as nothing more than a distant memory. The moment he had walked away from their wedding had been the turning point, not just for Josie, but for everyone who had once known him. He had disappointed more than just her. He had let down an entire community that had once embraced him. The people of St. Augustine had erased him from their conversations, refusing to acknowledge his past, unwilling to entertain reporters who sought to uncover details about his childhood or his rise to fame. To them, he was no longer part of their world, and now, standing before Josie, he was reminded of that reality. She made it clear. He wasn't welcome here. Then, breaking the tension, Billy entered the room, her voice filling the space with youthful energy. Liam listened, drawn to the girl's presence in a way he couldn't quite explain. There was something familiar in the way Billy spoke, something that stirred an unspoken connection. As they exchanged words, Liam learned that Billy was 7 years old. The realization settled deep, unraveling something within him. Once Billy had left, Josie finally spoke of the truth she had kept hidden for so long. On the day of their wedding, she had been unaware of her pregnancy. The betrayal of his absence had consumed her, leaving her lost in the aftermath of his departure. She had tried to reach him, had left a voicemail, a message she thought had remained untouched, unheard by him for years. But Liam had kept that message, listening to it every day, holding on to it as a relic of the love he had abandoned. Josie had wanted to tell him about the baby, but in the end, she had chosen silence. She had believed that she and her unborn child deserved better, deserved a life untouched by the pain of his absence. The name Billy came from Liam's mother's name, had been chosen not for Liam, but for his father, Brian, a man who had loved his wife deeply, who had carried that love with unwavering devotion. Then, without warning, Jack arrived, his presence sharp with protective anger. He had no intention of letting Liam linger, no desire to see his sister suffer a second time. His words were firm, his stance unyielding. Liam needed to leave. And so, Liam did. The ride home was filled with frustration, his thoughts tangled in the revelation of Billy's existence. Anger simmered as he confronted his father, demanding to know why he had never been told. But Brian had tried. He had reached out, had attempted to bridge the distance, only to be met with silence. He had even gone to one of Liam's concerts, only to be turned away, dismissed as if he were nothing more than a stranger. Sunday arrived, and with it, Brian's sermon. The message was one of forgiveness, a lesson meant for the congregation, yet one that resonated deeply with Liam. Though he remained hesitant, uncertain of his place among them, he lingered at the edges, listening. After the service, Brian invited Liam to stand beside him to greet the congregation. The words spoken that morning had softened the hearts of those who had once turned away from him, and for the first time, he felt a quiet acceptance. But even as the town began to welcome him back, Josie and Billy remained distant, choosing to exit through another door, avoiding him entirely. The next morning, Liam woke to find a note on his door. It was a message from Sam, his manager. Inside, he found a car key and a credit card. He then drove to Josie's flower shop, purchasing flowers for Kiera, Mason's widow. On that occasion, he asked Josie for something more, an introduction to Billy. He wanted to know his daughter, to understand the life he had missed. Josie hesitated, promising only to think about it. Later, at home, Josie finally spoke to Billy about her father, a conversation she had never initiated before. But before she could say the words, Billy revealed that she already knew. She had always known. Josie explained that Liam had never abandoned them, that he had never known about the pregnancy. And in response, Billy made a simple request. She wanted Liam to come to dinner so she could talk to her long-lost father. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, Liam's publicist, Doris, worked to control the narrative. She had fabricated a story about Liam's absence, claiming he was simply taking time off to rest. She wanted him back, wanted him to return to the spotlight. But when Liam told her about Mason's death, her response was cold, calculated. She saw it as an opportunity, a way to increase his popularity through sympathy. Liam, exhausted by the industry's relentless manipulation, ended the call. The next morning, Liam attempted to shop online, only to realize how disconnected he was from technology. He struggled with the simplest tasks, unable to navigate the digital world. Frustrated, he called Sam, asking for help. In the conversation, he revealed something unexpected. He had just discovered that he had a daughter. Sam, a father of 4, understood the gravity of the moment. Though he wanted Liam to return, he recognized that this was something far more important. That night, Liam arrived at Josie's house, carrying a large teddy bear for Billy. But the meeting took an unexpected turn. Billy was distant, indifferent, despite her being the one who had planned for Liam to visit. Then, in a quieter moment, Billy invited Liam to see her pet rabbit, leading him into her room. As they sat together, Billy spoke of her mother's habit of playing Liam's songs, of the quiet familiarity she had with his music. She wanted to know him, to understand him, but she wasn't ready to call him Dad just yet. She asked him to pick her up after school the next day, a small step towards something more. Before Liam left, Josie returned the necklace he had given her. She didn't want to accept him back into her life yet. It was too soon. Liam understood, accepting her hesitation. He mentioned Billy's request, but Josie was firm. It was too soon for Liam to be that close to Billy. Still, Liam pleaded for the chance, and in the end, Josie agreed as long as she went with him. The morning unfolded quietly as Josie and Liam met again in front of Billy's school gate, the tension between them softened by the lingering weight of unspoken words. Liam's phone vibrated in his pocket. It was a call from Doris, his publicist, but he ignored it, refusing to let the world outside disrupt this moment. Josie's gaze drifted to the device in his hand, realization settling in when she noticed that the old cell phone had never changed. The same phone he had carried in high school, untouched by the years, a reminder that despite the fame, despite everything, some parts of him had remained the same. Then, her own phone rang, pulling her focus away. Kiera was on the other end, her voice strained with grief, the weight of loss settling deep. Mason's absence was still fresh, his presence irreplaceable, and in that moment, Josie knew her friend needed her. Without hesitation, she decided to leave Liam alone at the school, trusting him to pick up Billy on his own. Billy emerged from the doors, her excitement dimming the moment she saw Liam's convertible. The sleek car, impressive yet unfamiliar, felt too dangerous, too exposed. Uncomfortable, she refused to ride in it, her hesitation clear in the way she stood her ground. Without missing a beat, Liam reached for his phone, calling Brian to borrow his car instead. Soon, Brian arrived, handing over the keys, and with that, the three of them, Billy, Liam, and Brian, found themselves spending the afternoon together, the air between them carrying a quiet sense of warmth, of familiarity. Exploring the house, Billy stumbled upon an old guitar, the worn strings still intact despite the years. It had once belonged to Liam, a piece of his past tucked away, forgotten but never lost. With curious hands, she asked him to write a song, something new, something she had never heard from his playlist. Liam strummed a few chords, letting the melody take shape, but before he could immerse himself fully, Brian called him to the kitchen for help, pulling him away from the strings. Left alone with the guitar, Billy traced her fingers across it, watching how the sound hummed beneath her fingertips as she tried to remember how her father did it, and when she pressed down on the strings, the chords rang out, clear, familiar, effortless. Liam and Brian exchanged knowing glances, realization settling between them. Billy had inherited his talent. It was unmistakable, woven into her presence, in a way neither of them had expected. Without hesitation, Liam promised to buy her a guitar of her own, and when she finally received it, she played beside her father, their melodies intertwining, building something unspoken. A connection neither had sought, yet had undeniably found. As Liam worked to rebuild his connection with Brian, he purchased a new coffee machine, ensuring his father could finally enjoy something better than the stale brews he had settled for. But beyond that, something weighed heavier on him. It was the flower garden that had once belonged to his mother. Long abandoned, left untended in the years since her passing, it stood as a silent marker of loss. Wanting to restore it, Liam invited Josie and Billy to help him bring it back to life, turning the process into something more than just gardening. Through shared moments, through laughter and quiet conversations, they grew closer, learning about one another in ways they hadn't before. While immersed in this new version of his life, Liam returned to music, writing new songs at the request of his label, crafting melodies that carried the weight of everything he had been rediscovering. One evening, Billy stayed at Brian's house. In the quiet of the night, she finally voiced what had lingered in her mind, asking Liam why he had left her mother in the first place. He didn't hesitate. He spoke of the past, of some moments before their wedding when he had performed at a pub. Catching the attention of a producer, his voice went viral, and his fame exploded overnight. The allure of success had consumed him, pulling him into a world he wasn't prepared for, overwhelming him before he had the chance to truly understand what it meant to be Liam Page, the country star. He admitted his faults, his regrets, confessing that leaving wasn't just the worst decision he had ever made. It was the one thing that had caused Josie more pain than he could ever undo. Unbeknownst to him, Brian and Josie sat outside, listening. Later that night, after Billy had drifted to sleep, Liam told Josie that Billy wanted to start calling him Dad. Josie, always cautious, reminded him of what that meant. It was a lifelong commitment, something that extended beyond words, beyond promises. And yet, Liam didn't waver. He was ready. As the night stretched on, Josie asked Liam to take her home. When they arrived, she spoke of something she had been considering. She wanted to go on a date with him, but not just any date. She wanted to step into his world, to be seen alongside him, to show the world that she was part of his life. Liam was ready. They promised to go out on Saturday night. At Billy's school, Liam signed Billy and himself up for the talent show, sparking excitement in Billy. The possibility of performing together with her dad lit up her expression. When Saturday arrived, Josie and Billy waited for Liam to pick them up. Before leaving, Josie pulled out an old photograph, a snapshot of their high school days, a frozen moment in time that had once held the promise of forever. Then, a limousine arrived. Not Liam behind the wheel, but a driver sent to escort them. They were led to a garden filled with flowers, where Liam waited, standing beside a helicopter that would take them to New Orleans. At the hotel, fans gathered, journalists lined up, their presence marking the inevitable clash between fame and reality. The evening unfolded with elegance, dinner, dancing, quiet laughter, a moment suspended in time, untarnished by the past. Josie, for the first time in years, allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, Liam deserved a second chance. Days later, Liam attended a barbecue party at Josie's house. The warmth of family surrounded him, with Billy playing and eating beside him, the air filled with quiet joy. Then, Jack arrived. The moment suddenly shifted. Billy, mid-bite, began to choke. Panic erupted, the joy of the evening dissolving in an instant. Jack reacted immediately, his instincts sharp, his movements precise. He saved Billy while Liam stood frozen, unable to react, his mind blank, his body immobile. Josie ran outside, her heart pounding, watching as Jack pulled Billy back from the brink. And in that instant, Liam was thrown back into the past. The night his mother had died, the helplessness that had consumed him, the unbearable realization that he had been useless when she needed him most, sent him spiraling. Liam drowned the emotions in alcohol, retreating to a bar, numbing himself before the weight of his failures could crush him completely. Jack found him there. The words came swiftly, brutally. Liam wasn't ready to be a father. Billy could have died, and he had done nothing. Jack still remembered the pain Liam had inflicted on Josie, the way he had shattered her life. And now, he was convinced Liam would do the same again. This time, Billy would suffer the consequences too. The weight of Jack's words settled deep within Liam, pressing against the edges of his mind, forcing him to confront the truth he had been avoiding. Frustration surged through him, the realization cutting sharper than he had anticipated. In a moment of unchecked anger, he struck the mirror at the bar, the glass shattering beneath his fist, leaving behind a wound that mirrored the turmoil within him. Back at home, Liam sat in silence, the sting of his injured hand barely registering against the storm of emotions raging inside him. He turned to Brian, his father, the one person who had always stood firm despite the distance between them. The confession came quietly. Liam believed he was a bad person, that the mistakes of his past were too great to be forgiven. The weight of 8 years bore down on him, the regret suffocating. Brian, unwavering, met his son's despair with quiet reassurance. He reminded Liam that forgiveness was meant for those who acknowledged their wrongs, that youth often led people down uncertain paths, and that sometimes guidance was needed to find the way back. The words settled into Liam's mind, offering a momentary reprieve, but exhaustion soon overtook him. Drunk and emotionally drained, he finally succumbed to sleep. The next morning, Liam left a message for his father, a quiet farewell meant for Josie and Billy. He had made his decision. He was leaving. The weight of his failures, the realization of his shortcomings, had pushed him toward the only path he knew. Jack, upon hearing of Liam's departure, felt the sting of guilt creeping in. The words he had spoken at the bar the night before echoed in his mind, and for the first time, he wondered if he had been too harsh, if his anger had played a role in Liam's decision to walk away once more. Liam returned to the life he had known before, moving from one tour to another, traveling from city to city, the rhythm of fame pulling him back into its relentless cycle. After finishing his tour in England, preparations were made for the next destination, Germany. On the plane, Sam, Liam's manager, observed the shift in Liam's demeanor. He wasn't the same person he had been before, the weight of something unspoken lingering in his expression. Concerned, Sam asked what had happened. Liam's response was quiet, filled with regret. Billy had almost died, and he had been unable to do anything to save her. The admission carried a heaviness that Sam understood immediately. He offered his perspective, reminding Liam that guilt was a sign of love, that mistakes were inevitable, but what truly mattered was how one chose to recover from them. Suddenly, Liam made up his mind. From England, Liam traveled back to America, the familiar hum of the airport surrounding him as he stepped off the plane. In the solitude of the terminal, he reached for his old cell phone, pressing play on the voicemail that had remained there for 8 years. The message from Josie, left on the day he had abandoned her at the altar. The words filled the space around him, carrying the weight of everything he had lost. And in that moment, he made his decision. For the first time, he replied. He spoke of Josie as his second love, the only person who had ever come close to the place his mother had held in his heart. Losing his mother had shattered him, had left him with a wound that had never truly healed. And when he had stood before Josie, ready to marry her, The fear of losing her one day had consumed him. He had run, not because he didn't love her, but because he had been too afraid to face the possibility of losing her too. But running had left him with an emptiness he had never been able to fill. Upon arriving in St. Augustine, Liam went straight to Josie's house, but she and Billy weren't home. Instead, he left his cell phone at her door, a silent offering, a piece of himself left behind. The next morning, Liam woke to the sound of Josie's voice. She had come to his house, standing before him with a quiet certainty. She had listened to his message, had finally understood the depth of his feelings, and in that moment, she made her decision. She was ready to accept him back into her life. That night, at the school talent show, Billy stood beside Liam, the two of them performing together, the melody carrying the weight of everything they had built in the short time they had known each other. The song was new, written by Liam in the days before, a reflection of the journey that had led him back to them. And then, on another day, Liam stood at the altar, dressed in a white tuxedo, his presence marked by quiet pride. Billy stood beside him, the moment carrying the weight of redemption, of promises finally fulfilled. This time, he wouldn't leave. No matter where his career took him, no matter how far his tours stretched, Josie and Billy would always be there.